Has your marketing gone bitter or sour? Sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the search bar, where we're serving up insights for your digital marketing to work successfully. For today's episode, we are joined by Martika Brianne Jones, the CEO of Boop, to discuss how she is empowering entrepreneurs to be better networkers using her technology. So, hey Martika, thanks for joining. Awesome to have you here. Hopefully I didn't go overboard how I said Boop there. I just think it's such a fun name, such a fun project there that you turned into a really cool company there. And I just really want to start off, here today talking about your roots, so just curious if you could kind of tell me about, where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of how you got into all this.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much for having me today, Eric. It's a pleasure. And yeah, I'm originally from a very small town. It's called Vicksburg, Mississippi. You probably have heard of it, somewhere like the Battle of Vicksburg or something like that. And there I grew up with my family, my mom, brother, grandparents. We lived in our grandparents' house. We didn't have much, but we had a lot of love and a strong sense of community there.
That's awesome.
And I feel like that's what shaped my deeply seated belief in strong community and relationships as well as connection.
I think that's awesome. So what brought you to Tampa? Obviously, we don't have to go through every single step, but just curious, like what led to you sitting in the chair here today?
Oh my gosh. So I feel like a series of things, if I could bring it back a little bit. So I started my career as an orchestral musician. So let's talk like 12 years old, playing a trombone, probably a little bit bigger than I was, or probably still am today. And that was a 13-year long, career. And I ended up traveling a lot for it. It afforded me scholarships and the ability to travel the world. And I got my undergrad in trombone at Montclair State University, which I was able to, play off Broadway. I had teachers from Juilliard, so I was really able to get that experience without having to pay that Juilliard tuition, which was nice. And long story short, after a while, it wasn't sustainable. Starving artists is very real. Mm-hmm. And we had to come back home to Mississippi, kind of regroup and figure out what is our next step. And my boyfriend at the time, now husband, we ended up looking around and we found opportunity here in Florida. We both had full-time jobs when we got here, but I was hearing all these different things around town, like, oh my gosh, you guys are early. This is a great place for, to start a business, innovation, everything. And I was like, well, I do want to start a business, but I didn't know where to start. And I looked around for programs and I saw that the University of Tampa had a master's program and in entrepreneurship. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try that out. And at that point, it was the best decision that I ever made.
Very cool. So we're super lucky to have you here in Tampa, that you found your way here, through the University of Tampa to Florida to Tampa. And so just to kind of come back a little bit to your passion there, so it really sounds like entrepreneurship and community are really your passions there. Is that really what you're most passionate about? Is that what kind of led to your growth there in those areas? Or we should just talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like at different points in my life, I had different passions. So starting with music, but I feel like that was always like a feeling. So authenticity, effectiveness, things like that. And being in that type of industry, you had to authentically be you. You had to be vulnerable. You had to be yourself. But at the same time, you had to be highly effective. And I felt like even with that and having that discipline, it kind of rolled over into business where I was very passionate about, authenticity. But I also wanted to be highly efficient in everything that I did. And I just felt like that naturally rolled over, like it was a natural transition.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about that transition a little bit, right? So how did that go from, you have such a varied background, right? Being a musician and probably doing a bunch of other things, so you probably went from being an employee to an entrepreneur. How did that transition go for you?
Well, that was interesting. So I would say in January 2019, when I started the master's program, having night class, everything like that, and working a 9 to 5, it was very difficult. I had to convince my boss. I can't tell you how exhausting it was, but I felt like in the end it was worth it. But I had to convince my boss to let me come in an hour earlier so I could leave an hour earlier so I could get to class on time because, the traffic back then, I want to say, was bad, but now it's very bad now, right? I'm trying to get over to UT, but just to have that time frame. But I would say the transition really started, I've always been a hard worker, and everything I did, I put my all into, even in my 9 to 5. But during those breaks, I really took advantage of, building out my business plan and doing everything I could to execute properly in my classes. And I would say 4 months in, around my birthday, my birthday is April 6th, but I would say that first week of April, I decided that for my birthday, I wanted to quit my job. Because I felt at that point we saved enough, had a little bit of a cushion so that we could really take that leap of faith.
That's quite the birthday gift for yourself there.
Yes, very important birthday gift. And I literally told my husband, I was like, look, for my birthday, I want us to quit. If this has to be the last thing I ever ask you for, because I know it's a big ask, that's fine. And he looked at me like, this woman is crazy. But we both did it. And we quit together, and that we never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you and your husband work together now?
Yes, we work together, and we work in 2 companies. So we have a design firm called Loomco, and because he's an artist, so we're both creatives, and we found each other. And but yeah, he's an artist by trade, phenomenal, and he now is a phenomenal branding specialist. So that's what he does. And I help him with that, but we also form Boop as well, which is why we have an awesome marketing. This is called Boop.
Got it built in the family, right? In their household there.
Yes, exactly. So that was the name was his idea, so because it's culturally relevant, and Boop is like an affectionate tap, and, you're like, Boop. So that's how that came to be. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that origin story there. So let's talk more about Boop, the technology and kind of its purpose there. Because, technology is great, but, technology should empower people, right? It's about what you do with that technology. So just curious, how does it work, and what's the purpose of it for Boop?
Definitely. So Boop is a networking solution that helps professionals and sales teams manage their leads more efficiently to close more deals. And how we do that is we automate the exchange of information, the follow-ups of the leads, and we nurtured them through personalized, personality-based follow-ups using AI.
So, talking about the technology, about Boop and about the company there, technology is really important to us, right, in society. And everybody has their iPhone, their watches, and everything now. So, I feel like any technology that we're asking people to use, we want people to use, needs to serve a purpose, right? It needs to be a reason for there. And so can you share kind of with Boop, what's the purpose and how does the technology work there?
Yeah, definitely. So Boop is a networking solution that helps professionals and sales teams manage their leads more efficiently to close more deals. So how we do that is we automate the exchange of information, the follow-up of leads, and nurture them with our powerful AI.
Wow. It sounds like everybody needs, what do you call it, 2 Boop or a Boop or invest in Boop? What do you do?
Yeah, so everyone needs a Boop, right?
A Boop, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a Boop device, or but yeah, it's both hardware and software. But the magic really happens in the software, where essentially, I'm not sure if you know, but 80% of sales requires a minimum of 5 follow-ups.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, but almost 50% of salespeople never make it past the first follow-up. And that's a huge hurdle. So, and, but we also want them to be able to do that authentically, because there are a lot of things out there where you can have automation and things like that, but it's just going to be the same type of template all the way across the board.
People ignore it, it just becomes spam, right?
Yeah, it seems spammy, right?
Yeah.
And our biggest thing is, in our root, in our ethos, like authenticity and efficiency, we want to make it efficient, but we also want it to be personalized, because we want you to focus on what really matters, which is building meaningful relationships while taking the work out of that networking, which is why we do personality-based follow-ups for all of your leads.
Very cool. I want to talk a little bit about more, our listeners can't see it, but you're wearing a wristband, right? A Boop.
Yes.
So what does that wristband do?
So the wristband is an NFC band. NFC stands for near field communication. And you've probably seen it around. You probably even like paid, at Publix or something with your phone. So think of it kind of like Apple Pay or Google Pay.
Okay.
And you're able to tap someone's device and your profile comes up. And then there they have the ability to save your information. Then they can exchange theirs. And once they fill out that lead capture form, that's where the magic begins to happen.
Nice. Okay. So do both people need to have a wristband, a Boop, or just one person?
Just the one person, or you can have a QR code. You don't even have to have the device. So as long as someone scans that QR code, then they can, or tap the device, then they can have it. But the receiver doesn't need to have the app or anything like that. Just a smartphone.
That's so cool. Because sometimes that can be so limiting, like, hey, you need to be on the same platform I am in order for this to work, but only for one end to need to have it. That's phenomenal. That's really cool. So you guys really put a lot of thought into it, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Kind of how it's going to work and everything. So where the magic happens, you already kind of teased it there, is on the software side. Can you talk about that a little bit more? So what happens there? You threw around some buzzwords there, right? Like AI, personality-based follow-up. So what does that actually mean?
So let's take it through a scenario. I boop you, right? Like boop, and you exchange your information with me. And now essentially what's happening on the back end is the AI is generating, before it generates, it's actually scraping all of the information, like public information, like your LinkedIn, and is able to determine your personality based on like what you post and things like that, and maybe how you want to be talked to, how you want to be sold to. And then it generates a follow-up response for that. And then you're able to determine, hey, this looks great, ship it off, and then the AI does the rest. And then you have your time sequences. So let's say we haven't heard anything from you. Then 3 days later, another follow-up. 4 days later, another follow-up, so on and so forth. So until there's some human interaction, or it just falls off, but then it'll transfer to your CRM.
Got it. That was my next question there. You already kind of answered it, I think. So it integrates with your existing CRM.
Yes, so we have a CRM integration, so you can literally just connect it. We'll help you with the configuration, and then,
Very cool. So this seems like almost a necessity if you have a CRM, because a CRM by itself does nothing, right? You need something that actually helps fill that CRM and works those leads. And it sounds like that's what Boop does for you, right? It helps you actually close deals.
Yes, exactly. We're like in that sweet spot. So we're not just that lead capture system, and we're not full-blown CRM. We're just right there where we help you get to that next point in that relationship.
That is so cool. So you've already come so far. You already solved so many problems and can help in so many different ways. So just curious, do you have any long-term goals, or where are you gonna take this besides taking over the world, it sounds like, with Boop?
We definitely have some long-term goals in the future where we're looking at, not just with businesses, working with municipalities. We currently have some things in the works right now. We're looking at, because we have this device, truly making it your digital twin is our long-term goal. We're talking access. You already have your personality on your wrist, right? Think of payments. Now you don't have to fish for credit cards and things like that. It's right here on your wrist. So you have your digital identity in every sense of the way. And it could even be the thing that saves your life, because it could be your medical bracelet as well. So we definitely have a lot of things in the works for long term. Cool.
I love that. Thanks for sharing all that. That was awesome. If you don't mind, I'd like to do what we call barrels of wisdom, talk a little bit more, maybe some things that you can share with the listeners here. Obviously, you're a very successful entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship evolves every single day. And so just curious, a lot of people are interested, how you kind of evolved, what kind of pivots you've had to make along the way, kind of since you've launched Boop, and where you kind of see the businesses heading in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, so I would like to start back with our initial startup coming out of the University of Tampa. It was an AI-powered micro influencer marketing platform that would essentially match micro influencers to small businesses. The reason we chose them is because they were truly authentic in their purpose and they were experts in their niche. And that aligned with us wholly. And the issue with that was mainly talent at that time. It was kind of like being a new CEO. And that was like the start of my journey and really trying to find that voice and then bringing on co-founders. And I learned, I would like to say, going through that program, it taught you everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. I felt like I got to experience all of those different things in that first startup, which was like, be careful who you choose as your co-founders, right? Because it's like a marriage. Seriously. Yeah. So that's one nugget I have to get. It's like a marriage, seriously. And that can cause, certain things down the road. If you don't hash it out sooner than later. I would say a year and a half, we ended up having to dissolve that company. So that idea didn't really get to, come to fruition, even though we had a wait list of over 700 people that wanted that product.
Right.
So I still took that authenticity and efficiency and brought it into the next iteration where I wanted to help influencers still. So it manifested as a BioLink platform. We realized very quickly that we saw this problem in the professional networking sphere. So rather than like dealing with influencers, maybe influencers in a professional networking and then niching it down to salespeople, they needed this, I felt, more than that. So that's how Boop was born out of that failed startup. And we were able to just hit the ground running with that, starting with real estate. And yeah, so it's just it's definitely like a pivot, but the underlying constant was staying within that purpose, like authenticity, efficiency, and then finding ways in where people were having that problem, and then us being able to bring that and solve that particular problem.
Wow. So that's phenomenal, right? So from a failed startup, you didn't get discouraged or you didn't get frustrated. You took the learnings, right? Stood right back up and made something bigger and greater out of that. And great advice there. Pick your co-founders carefully, right? And I like the analogy you had there. It's like a marriage, right?
Yes.
It's a big commitment, right?
It is.
You're going to be doing a lot of work together, a lot of late nights, I imagine, a lot of work there. So very, very great advice there. Thank you. Curious, kind of talking about that a little bit. You're talking about kind of Boop there and how, building community there. And just curious if you have any advice of how brands can do right now to connect with or build a community and stay connected with their audience.
Definitely. So, of course, we have this lovely thing called social media.
Yep. Heard of it.
Yes. And I think at the end of the day, it starts with you and wanting to really put yourself out there and start creating that content. I found in the beginning I had a lot of issues with taking myself too seriously. And I'm like, I don't know if I could, see myself like doing this or doing some goofy things. But, slowly have come to realize like, people want to see that goofy side of you or those behind the scenes, and it makes them feel connected to you.
Right, yeah.
And, coming from that content creator background, things like that, people want to be involved in your life, like whether they know you or not. And so what we've done with Boop is really, and we're still evolving it because we want it to be kind of like this club where it's like, oh, are you booping? If you're not booping, then what are you doing? So we started a Facebook group called Booping Tampa Bay, but recently launched our LinkedIn group for Booping Tampa Bay because that's where all of our professionals are. And, we want to create this space where they can come in and bring their expertise and share that love for, technology and efficient B2B marketing and things like that. So just creating that environment, I think, and people respond well to it.
Yeah. So kind of almost creating that exclusive club for Boopers, right?
People love exclusivity.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I love the exclusivity. And then also the authenticity, kind of bring that in, right? Kind of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
A little bit, I think is also fantastic kind of advice to how to build that community. Also, I'm assuming kind of letting go of the reins a little bit, right? Because the community probably goes and moves in different directions than you might be comfortable with there. What's that? That's time for the perfect pour. So that was our alarm here. So now it's time for the fun part, right? So thank you for everything you've shared so far. So, I know we kind of talked a little bit before on the Perfect Pour. We sent over some Mad Libs, aka fill in the blanks, to create a wine label here at the search bar for you. And just curious what you came up with, Martika, if you want to just read those to our listeners here.
Yeah, definitely. So for my Mad Lib, if I were to create a bottle of my own marketing blend, it would be called Synergistic Sip.
Ooh, I can already taste that. That sounds delicious.
Yes. My bottle of marketing has 2 key ingredients, which are empathy and innovation.
Nice.
This blend is best for forward-thinking entrepreneurs who want to connect more authentically and efficiently.
Nice. That's phenomenal. I mean, I can tell you put a lot of thought into that. It very much aligns to kind of your journey, kind of where you are as an entrepreneur, and to Boop there. And just curious about those 2 ingredients. Why are those 2 ingredients, empathy and innovation, why do you think those are the most 2 important ingredients in marketing?
So empathy and innovation, I feel like they're key because empathy allows you to understand. And I think that's the biggest thing. People want to be understood.
Yes.
And just how we have that with Boop, it allows us to help us understand what our users want and need. Because you don't want to give them something that you think they want and need, right? It's all about listening and understanding. And innovation allows you to act on that empathy so that you can really efficiently provide what the user needs, right?
I love how you connected those 2 there, right? Empathy and innovation. One's doesn't work without the other, yes. Right? We're not all Steve Jobs and Apple Computer who's I'll tell people what they want and then they'll buy it, right? That's great if you're Steve Jobs and Apple, but that's not the way it works in the real world, right?
Exactly.
We all know you need to put yourself in the shoes of someone else and understand what are their needs, what are their wants, et cetera. So I think that's so true. And Boop, just speaks to innovation, right? It doesn't get more innovative. So empathy, very important. And then innovation, I think, is the core DNA of Boop, right? It's definitely part of it. But as far as marketing goes, you mentioned kind of the communities and community building. It almost feels like you're very organic marketing there, right? So you're not forcing it on people. You're kind of letting it to grow organically by people discovering it, right?
Yes.
And for me as a search marketer, a lot of times you look, is this a need? Is this a want? When people are searching for something. And so I'm just curious at Boop, kind of talking about understanding the user empathy and innovation there. Do you see this kind of more as a need or a want, or how do you see that kind of playing out for those successful professionals and those salespeople there?
Definitely. So I do a lot of surveying, and I would suggest that for anybody, customer survey is king, just because it helps you create more informed decisions.
Yeah.
And so I found that it's definitely been a need. Our original way, we were first thinking, people want customizability and all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But when we finally got to the underlying aspect, which was everybody's networking, is just that, it's not really a better way to network just because there's a digital business card aspect. It's more what happens after you get those leads. And it's really getting under the hood and realizing oh, wow, this is the underlying problem, and then focusing on that. And now people are oh, yeah, I can fully admit, I'm terrible at this. Or I have all these business cards piled up, and I don't do anything with it. And yeah, I probably missed out on a bunch of deals, maybe even one of a lifetime. And, and so people feel that pain. Yeah. And I would say that you want to create a painkiller, not a vitamin.
I like that.
I got that from one of my favorite books called Hooked. And that is by Nir Eyal, and it's about how to build habit-forming products. So
amazing. Yeah. That's a great recommendation. So thank you for sharing that. And I like kind of where you were talking about there, in the sales process, we talk a lot about this is how you get leads And, that's good. And this is how you close it, or this is how you do the sale at the end. But kind of in between getting the signature and first getting that lead, a lot of times a big black box, right? Is like, oh, something happens between getting a lead and closing the deal. It's magical, whatever, right? And so you actually kind of like opened the hood there and looked, how does that actually work and how can we optimize that and make that better?
Yes.
And I think that's just really cool because a lot of people, like you said, that's a need, right? Because it's not magic. It's not a black box. There's things happening there. And you guys are really doing great work there and helping people out.
Thank you so much, Eric. I truly appreciate those words. And we're always, looking for ways to innovate even now. Mm-hmm. But, all we can do at this point is just continuously listen to our customers and what they want and what they suggest. And then we can add that to our next iteration as we continue to innovate.
I'll tell you how important what you just said is, because I wish more brands, more companies took that to heart, right? And understanding that we wouldn't be in business, we wouldn't be growing without our customer, right? Yep. So understanding how are they using the product, right? What are their needs? What are their wants is really important. And it's something that you need to bake in and continue to evolve the product, right? Like great example right now is Twitter, right? Like Elon Musk came in and it's like, hey, we're going to change all these things, and everybody is going to leave. And then, hey, it opens the door for Meta to come up with a new platform, Threads that recently launched, and everybody's going to go over there because the product that we all enjoyed using has changed because the company Twitter decided to change to be different, So, if they had listened to the users and kind of what people want, maybe, Threads wouldn't have gotten however tens of millions signups so quickly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great there. So just curious, as we're coming to the end here, Martika, is there anything else you want our listeners to know about you or the future of entrepreneurship here?
I would just like to say that entrepreneurship is more than just about building a business. Mm-hmm. It's about creating value as well as making a difference. So, and even more so than that, being able to adapt quickly and just constantly be in the know. Always have your ear to the ground and listening. I think that's the biggest takeaway I want our listeners to have.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much for being an awesome guest, sharing your journey, sharing Boop. I definitely encourage, if you guys haven't listening here, watching us, go check out Boop, kind of see what the product is, try it out, and see if it's something that can help you or not. Where can people go to learn more about Boop?
Yes, you can go to www.boop.ai, and all of our social media is Boop Cards, so it's pretty easy to find us.
Fantastic. Again, thank you for joining us here, Martika. It was my pleasure having you on as a guest, and look forward to kind of seeing the continued growth of Boop, and can't wait to see where you guys end up in a couple of years here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. Thank you so much for joining us at the Search Bar. You can connect with Martika and myself on LinkedIn and follow along with our journeys. We'll add the links to connect with us directly in the episode description. We hope we filled your glass with digital wisdom, and we will see you for the next episode on the Search Bar real soon.